Hello, welcome to Tampon Talk with Mary. Welcome to the show that only airs once a month. Quick story. God, so I have been measuring pandemic length by periods, and it has been too many. Because when the severe stay-at-home orders started here in the U.S., I had just started my period, so that was nice. But that's been the marker for how long it's been. So I have had 6 periods. That's half a year of menstruating during the coronavirus pandemic. Luckily, as far as I am aware, have not gotten the virus. Gucci fam. Wear your goddamn mask. This immediately puts a timestamp on this episode, but oh my god. Wear a mask. Maybe, perhaps, you could wear a Jubilance mask. They are so nice, and they are the sponsor of today's episode. They sent me such a cute little Jubilance mask and a little note. They are spectacular. We've had them on the show before. If you have had any issues with your premenstrual syndrome, be not afraid. There is help for you. So if you check the link in the description of this episode, if you go on our Instagram, TamponTalkWMary, you can find some info on them. Get your bottle now. I believe you can also still use code TAMPON if you wanted a discount, and you also wanted to help support the show, which would be spectacular because we're in that pandemic, like I said we were. So, you should check them out. Follow them on Instagram. That they are on other socials, but that's like the main one that be popping. Follow them there. And yeah, try Jubilance. And yeah, I am so excited for this episode. We, have had conversations here on the show about menstrual access and the kind of privilege that people have of just having this array of whatever period products they needed. But that shouldn't be a privilege, it should be a right. But because it's so stigmatized, we don't talk about it, and, access is more and more difficult. So we bring on more and more people to talk about the accessibility and how easy it is to get it to your door, and also the making of said period products, and how healthy they should be without taking any shortcuts. So I am super, super excited for our guest who really embodies that. Her and her company, they make period products that are on a subscription base as well, so you can get stuff delivered to your door, which is great. They also make 100% organic cotton products. And I'm sure she'll talk about it when she comes on the show, but there is such an importance to having period products that don't have harsh chemicals, as your vagine absorbs a lot more than you think. So putting great stuff down there, if your body health, you're super conscious about what you eat, and other things that you're putting into your body, period products should be all the same. So this is a super exciting episode. I am so happy that we had found the time to do this. She is so cute. I'm so excited. But yeah, here's the interview. Hope you like it.
It's always nice because we're friendly neighbors, right? To the north. So I don't know. It's I've been in Canada my whole life, so pretty much, but I have a lot of relatives that live in the US, so it's pretty much almost the same thing, except our place is a bit smaller, and our our currency is a little cheaper, so great for tourism. So,
and I think I read something where the amount of coronavirus cases just in Los Angeles make up the amount for all of Canada.
It's so insane. I just can't believe it. I mean, I don't want to get into politics, with this whole call, but
I'm sure we feel the same.
Yeah, it's just pretty insane. I don't know what's going on. With management of the coronavirus, but I'm hoping that things will get better, hopefully, by the fall. So yeah. So we have a lot of my Auntie Marianne, actually, she also lives in LA, And she actually made us some homemade masks, and she sent it all the way over here to Toronto for us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she was great. So my husband and I have matching masks now. So
Oh, very cute.
yeah.
I don't think my fiance would wear matching anything with me.
That's okay.
I
You know.
wanted to, but you know those shirts you see like Disney fans have where it's like I'm his Mickey and her Minnie and
Oh
like and
yeah.
like that those sometimes we made a joke that sometimes the couples that like wear that are like the most dysfunctional and like
Oh my gosh. No, you know what? It's actually so funny that you mentioned that. So I went on vacation to South Korea, and I actually didn't know this was a thing, but they actually have the exact same matching T-shirts or like the exact same matching outfits, and it's actually a thing over there where they will match from head to toe, and it's actually like it's really popular, you know. So I was like, oh, you know, and at first, like, because the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, that couple is trying so hard. But then I started noticing there were more and more people like that, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is
they're all trying hard.
yeah, yeah, you know, it's a thing over there. So
That's
yeah,
so funny. I didn't know that.
yeah. You know, every culture has its own like interesting things and interesting aspects. So
Yeah,
yeah,
like
it was
South Korea
pretty
has like
funny.
matching outfits, and like the U.S. has just general ignorance. Just
Oh no, no,
our
no.
little quirks.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really glad that we actually have a chance to talk. It's been really, really busy on my end with a lot of renovations and then taking care of Madeline full time while you know, this whole COVID thing happened. I had to pull her out of daycare as well, so it's been a bit challenging. But
Yeah,
it is what it is.
it's like couldn't imagine why you'd be so busy.
And then also running Lilli Pads, of course. That's
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's been pretty busy.
And then, kind of on that topic, I don't know if you just kind of give us a brief, just for the audio sake, we're bringing the third party into the room of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
audience. So if you want to just give us like a brief introduction, about yourself and like maybe a little bit of info about the company. We'll probably talk a little further
sure.
about that,
Okay.
but
Yeah, of course. So my name's Elaine, and I started Lilli Pads around, it was back in 2016. So the original premise of why I started Lilli Pads was actually because I got sick from using a pad. And I was on family vacation, and, you know, I just, you know, it's my period. So I was just put on, you know, one of my regular pads, and suddenly I, you know, within I would say the hour, I started feeling really sick. And at first I thought I had a really bad UTI, but then it just kind of got worse and worse to the point where I couldn't even really do anything. Like I couldn't go on any tours or anything. I had to stay at the hotel just to recover. And then later when I don't know why it came to me. I just actually ended up going to the convenience store. And what I did was I just bought another pack of pads, and I switched it. And then all of my symptoms went away. And then that kind of got my brain rolling. And I was like, well, what's going on here? You know? And then I tried using one of my other, like the original pads, and then all the symptoms came back. So I was like, there must be something in these period products. So I started doing more and more research on it, and the more I found out, the more disturbed I got because I didn't actually realize the types of things that went into your pads and your tampons. And actually, I know, for example, the National Institute of Health, they actually funded a study on feminine hygiene products, and they ended up discovering that there are a lot of things like phthalates and other types of endocrine disrupting hormones that were found in your pads and tampons. So it was pretty disturbing, and that was actually kind of led to the fuel behind Lilli Pads, because I was like, why aren't there, at least in Canada, we really hadn't no alternative to all the big box types of period products out there. So it was kind of my premise to start Lilli Pads to offer women a healthier and safer alternative for period products. So yeah, that's Lilli Pads in a nutshell. Yeah, it's been 3 years. It's been three crazy, well, actually 4 years since I started, and it's kind of just a lot of up and downs, and then I also had my daughter in between. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
quite the adventure, the adventure to say the least. So yeah, I have to say it was a very challenging thing starting my own business, but it was also one
Yeah.
of the most rewarding things that's ever happened to me as well. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's Lilli Pads in a nutshell.
No, that's really, and so what, I guess if I can ask, like, what were you doing before starting Lily Pads? Like,
Oh, actually, it's so funny that you mentioned that. I was in the financial industry.
really?
Yeah, so it's like a complete 180. I was working in banking for a couple of years, and before that, I was actually in the insurance industry working in investments. So
Hmm.
to start Lily Pads was really something that was so different. And
Yeah.
sometimes I ask myself, how did I even get here? But it's just funny how what direction life takes you, because you can never really predict what happens to your life.
Yeah.
And I have to say, since I started, I've definitely become a lot healthier, and I'm a lot more conscious about my health.
Mm.
I feel a lot happier as well, less stressed. Even
Yeah.
with everything that's going on, I'm really happy that I started Lily Pads. I would have not wished for my life to have turned out in a different way.
Mm.
Yeah, so
No, that's
it's
awesome.
it's funny what happens in life. I would have never predicted that. If you asked me
Yeah.
if I were 10 years younger, you asked me what I would be doing, I thought I would still be in the industry that I was in. But
Hmm.
things change.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting too is that this, like, at least positive changes for necessities for women are usually
Yeah.
started by women having, this
Yeah.
problem and being the first to say, like, how do I solve this for myself and my family, and then go further from there.
Yeah, and that was the thing too, because since that episode happened to me and I got that big health scare, I I was just so astonished that nobody really seemed to care in the industry, that
Yeah.
they have things like pesticides and insecticides that they use in the cotton, or if like they use cotton pads, but most of it's actually made with plastic. So it's not even just not being good for your health, it's also not good for the environment either,
Mm.
because a woman uses on average over 10,000 period products in her lifetime. So you can imagine the amount of waste, and the amount of exposure that you get by using these type of products. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to find something that was healthier, not just for our bodies, but also something that was biodegradable, so that, at the end of the day, um, you know, you won't have as much of an impact on the environment. So that's how I came up with my pad and tampon line,
Mm.
which, was kind of the idea. So yeah.
Which I think, and that's something that didn't even, like, occur to me when, like, seeing all the stuff with lily pads, is that like, the positive effects on, well, one, women's health, of, if you're so body conscious about what you eat and, like, exercising, that,
Yeah.
not having that need met with your menstrual products, but not even, like, considering, like, how much waste it actually makes, and, like, women that want to see a positive change with the
Yeah.
environment feeling really, like, stuck, of, well, I need this and this is the only option.
Yeah,
I think
and
it's
that's
really
the
cool.
thing too, right? Because women are really, we kind of build our communities, we build the foundations, and I always think that a healthy family, a healthy lifestyle starts with a healthy woman.
Yeah.
What?
Hmm.
Kind of like we're kind of like the backbone when it comes to taking care of the family,
Mm.
and so you know, oftentimes, and especially now since I've had my daughter, I have to say I feel like I haven't had much time for myself, but it's so
Mm.
important for us to take care of our health. Even if it's like, even if you're living with your dog, or, a fiance or a boyfriend, I always find that the female role always seems to revert back into, to some extent, taking care of, you know, whatever it is that you're taking care of.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I have to say, like, if there's some way for women to support other women, it's always a positive thing, you know. And that was also part of the reason why with Lilli Pads, I really wanted to have a strong social foundation to it too. So, I mean, specifically here in Toronto, I'm partnered with FemCare, but I actually, funnily enough, I also partnered with, I guess, like a little nonprofit organization called the Period Stigma Project here in California.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Coincidental. So yeah, and we've donated some of our period products over to some of the women's shelter, and I think it was in LA, but it was definitely in California somewhere. And yeah, and then also the same in Toronto as well, just to help out those in needs. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like sort of on this topic of, well, I mean, just accessibility with menstrual products and like them being eco-friendly and like organic, and like accessibility is probably like the biggest hardship that a woman faces when, or just anybody trying to get period products. And it's like that's something, at least I mean, I guess I can only speak in the US, but just like the privilege of being able to go into a store and afford a menstrual product shouldn't be a luxury.
Oh yeah.
But I love that you started like your efforts towards making period products, what they should be, which is a right. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Like, and that's the thing too. I mean, like, I think that especially for those who don't have the funds, it can be a very challenging thing to get access to menstrual products. So even for example, for some of the homeless women, it's already difficult enough to be, panhandling, or to, for example, have struggles with alcohol or addiction, but to also afford the dignity of having, access to period products, that's a challenge. And, it's a challenge that they face every month. And a lot of the women, that the cases that I've heard of, it's, they don't have access to these things. So, it also takes away from I guess, like, it also creates further stigma to their problems with homelessness as well. And it's crazy, because you would think that now, at this day and age, women would have pretty much equal rights to men, but you can see it across the world. In other areas across the world, it might not necessarily be the case, and it kind of also centers around the period. I'm sure if you heard of, like, some of the countries in Africa, or I know specifically in India, there have been pockets of women who don't get access to these products, and as a result, they might have to be moved away from the village or from their community during the time when they have their periods. So I mean, it's a challenge, because I always feel like the period should be something that we should celebrate in some way. And the reason why I say that is because it's really kind of a sign of health and fertility, the fact that you're even able to have a period to begin with. And as crazy as it sounds, even when I was younger, I was actually a late bloomer, and I didn't start getting my period until I was around 13. So
wow.
Yeah, so I was a really late bloomer, but I still remember when I was younger, I always wished that I had my period. I was like, oh,
period party with a cake when she got it. And
yeah, I know. And well, that was the thing, because all of my friends had their periods already, and I was just kind of waiting around. I'm like, when will I get mine? So, it's really something that I think it makes us, who we are, and it also defines our experience as a woman, and one of the experiences that define us as women as well. So yeah, I mean, it's I could talk on and on about this, but it's definitely something that that I think should be recognized and celebrated more, if anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I am, and I totally agree. And being able to like want to talk about that all day long is making a podcast for that particular subject. Like like women just like being the epicenter for art in general, like art over time in multiple different cultures, like most of the time women are at the center, and just like fertility is a big subject matter like explored in art, and like
Yeah, of course.
even menstruation to a certain degree. I think it's just like um yeah, there's I don't know at what point what happened where it's could just be, you know, a majority of men not wanting to talk about it or whatever it is, but just like it being associated as something that's like dirty and like shameful, like
Yeah.
you're not clean when you have it, and like
Yeah.
yeah, and I love that you had mentioned India and Africa, because that's I think mainly when we talk about those like period pockets, like you were saying, is like the biggest gap being in like education, you
Yeah,
know.
and that's the thing, right? Because a lot of women also, a lot of girls get denied access, for example, to education when they get their periods in certain regions where maybe they don't have as much, you know, access to how do I say, to funding, to opportunities,
Yeah.
and you know they might have to either stay at home and have their period, or they have to go to school and they have to make that decision, and it's quite unfortunate because at the end of the day it's a cost to them. And you know, if there's some way to be able to help these women and you know get equal access to education, right? And a lot of it also stems from educating locals as well,
Mm.
on these topics. Yeah, so it's I would say like we're getting into the step to the right direction, but it's going to take a few more years at least to be able to close the gap. I think in terms of equal rights. Yeah,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
get,
and yeah. Go ahead.
I no, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, and I have to say, like, it's also something that, like, I would say, the period, it's like what you said, is something to be celebrated as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so funny because I was part of a kind of like a WeWork here in Toronto called Chico System, and it's all female centric. Basically, it's a workspace environment that's geared specifically towards women,
Hmm.
and they would have a lot of these, I guess, events that would celebrate being female and trying to get all your artistic talents out there. Um, and a lot of it also revolved. We had something called the Red Moon, basically. I don't know if you heard about it, but
No, I
basically,
don't think so. Yeah.
it's just a celebration of your period. So every time, you know, because I guess to some degree, there are some magical components that are associated with having a period. Um, and I guess it's also linked to like the moon as well. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting event, and you know, I'm really glad to be part of Ecosystem, at least here in Toronto. Yeah, and then so that's pretty much my experience with Ecosystem. You know,
Very cool.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and sort of, so this is sort of on like the same topic of just when we were talking about homelessness and
yeah,
accessibility, like the stigma in general,
yeah.
and facing a challenge of one, starting a company in general, and then two, having that company be a product that is under a stigmatized topic.
Mm.
Have you run into any sort of experiences with the company where you're having to fight the stigma to like talk about
Oh my
healthy menstrual
gosh.
product
Okay.
access?
Actually, you know what? The whole industry, it's okay. So I would say with the industry, the big box industries, most of the executives who market the conventional period products, a lot of them are just like, I don't know why, they're all male dominated. And that's a crazy thing. It's because a lot of it is like male marketing executives who will be like, oh, you know, they have like their test groups, and then they are like, oh, what do you women want? So it's not really like what it's kind of like what men think that women want in a period product.
Should explain the lack of good products up until
yeah, but it's insane. Like there have been a lot of challenges, I have to say. For example, I was I guess working and selling my products at the National Women's Show in Toronto, and then there would actually be men coming up to my booth trying to challenge me on why there even needs to be an organic period product.
What?
And, yeah, and it's insane because like I would get into like there was one guy in particular who I got into I guess kind of a discussion about, and he mentioned he was like, well, what's the point of even having a period product that's organic like that? That's just a marketing tool. And I'm like, okay, it's not just a marketing tool. If anything, like I had a personal experience with these products, and he was just saying, well, what's the difference? You're going to throw it out anyway, And it was like he totally like doesn't understand what the experience of having a period is like, right? And he's just trying to say, well, you can just get like the cheapest product out there if it works and just use it, right? And yeah, it was insane. And I'm like, I don't even understand why you're even here at the National Women's Show.
Yeah. So you'd have to like ask like men like this, just like, I want you to take just like the toilet paper roll that's like cardboard and just like shove that like up your penis. Like like what? Oh, you're just gonna throw it away anyway, like what like.
Yeah, I know, right? And I was so astounded by his response. But that's the thing, it's like I guess like most men are not aware, but then there's a lot of challenge with them starting the business or working on the business, because it's not even just men. Some women are like that too, where they're like, well, I don't see the point, it's just like once every month, and you can just use whatever. If it works, then it works. But it's one of those things where it's fine, it works until it doesn't, and then it's just at that point. For example, like I know that I have a friend of a friend, and she actually ended up with toxic shock syndrome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was the worst thing ever. She was hospitalized for a week, and the reason is I have to say it was very difficult for her, because the problem was she's a circus performer. And so it's not like you can wear a pad underneath your costume or whatnot.
Right.
Yeah. So she was forced to use a tampon, and basically, nobody knows about it until at one point it's too late. And the problem with, I would say, conventional tampons is they're actually made with a wood, like it's something called cellulose rayon, and it's basically a wood pulp that they compress into a tampon, and it's super absorbent. But the one problem is that wood pulp flakes inside of your body, so it actually your vagina is basically the most sensitive part of your body. It is the most absorbent part of your body. So if there are contaminants in the wood pulp, it will go directly into your bloodstream, and it's actually more effective in being absorbed into your body than, say, for example, if you ate it.
What?
It's 10 times. It's actually your nether regions are actually 10 times more sensitive than your skin on your hand. And
that's
so
crazy.
yeah, so that's why most people aren't aware, but that being that sensitive, I mean, I think that we should kind of be a bit more aware of what goes into our products. And I mean, the reason why I say that also is because, I mean, like, it's not like, well, I don't know. It's funny as it sounds. It's like, if you're using, I don't know, 10,000, I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, 10,000 tampons throughout your lifetime, that's like, potentially like 10,000 partners or something.
No, yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, like, you kind of want to know like what's going into your body before, you put it in. So, and that's the same with the tampons as well, because it's one of the things where everything works and it's great until it's not. And that's the one thing that they mentioned, so how they talk about toxic shock syndrome. They say, well, it's because you've left the tampon in for too long, but that might not necessarily always be the case. There was one model who was also based out of LA, and she ended up with toxic shock syndrome. I forget her name off the top of my head, but I know Paris Hilton did a feature on her before.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and basically she had her period, and she, how do I say, she went to the convenience store like, every other day, bought a pack of tampons, and then she used it, and within 2 hours she fainted in her apartment, and she, next thing you know, she was actually in the hospital, and they had to amputate, I think, both of her legs as well.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was all a result of toxic shock syndrome. And the thing was, it wasn't like she left the tampon in for that long. It was just, I think there was some sort of contaminant in the tampon, and that's the thing too, because the manufacturers, they don't have to necessarily disclose what's in a tampon. They don't have to tell you. So, it's a very scary experience. And, I think she was 24 at the time. For a 24-year-old model to just, lose both of her legs and, have to redefine her career in another way, it's traumatizing, right? And
Yeah.
you wish that nothing like that would ever happen to anybody,
And like, from just doing something that's so basic and innate to just having a period in general. It's not like you don't just not choose to do that, or like, you shouldn't have to deal with that in the first place.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, I feel like there needs to be more awareness around what goes into your product, and you know what possible consequences there could be as well, for using, I would say, you know whatever it is out there. It's important to know. And I think even with the pads as well, I mean, a lot of them, the reason why a lot of them feel so uncomfortable is because they're actually made with plastic. Most people think it's made with cotton, but you could always do this demonstration where you take a pad and you try to use a lighter and light it, and if it burns right away, it's most likely made with plastic. If it has a funny smell, it's plastic. And actually, they the marketers actually are very clever, and they market it as being cotton-like or having a cotton-like feeling, but it's not actually cotton. So, it's also another kind of shady thing that happens with the industry.
It's like, I don't want anything that's like cotton like. I would just
Yeah.
like cotton.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that's the thing. So a lot of people actually don't know what goes into their period products. And I think that's the whole reason. Well, that's a huge part of Lilli Pads, and it's just educating people on, what goes into your period products.
Yeah.
And to be able to at least offer women a safer and healthier alternative is a big thing for us as well.
And the other thing we didn't even talk about at all is that you're very affordable, which most like, say you're sort of expecting, like, the hard truth in the US about capitalism is that if, like, a small business wants to succeed, that their prices seem higher than like a bigger corporation. So, sure, this company is trying to do the right thing by, like, making, nice organic products, but they can't compete in in the market. But you have a healthy product, an organic product, a natural product that's affordable.
Yeah.
So, like,
and and that's the thing too. It's part of the proceeds actually go back to contributing to the communities as well, just
that's
to make sure
awesome.
that there will be access to period products for others. So that's why we partnered up with our NGOs or nonprofits as well. So yeah, and that's the thing, right? Because I think at the end of the day, it's important for women to be able to have, to be able to support each other in some way or another as well. So yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's always just baby steps. I have to say, like, this year was supposed to be, I would say, I think for many people, this year was supposed to be the year because it's 2020.
Yeah.
But, a lot of things have changed because of COVID. But, it also means that there are other opportunities as well. And so, like, a lot of the education, a lot of the promotions now, it's all, taken online. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And I
I'm really glad that we're having a talk and just, discussing the importance of periods as well.
Yeah, because I think it's with the little time we have, it's a subject that is able to kind of come to the forefront now when we're talking about like public health and related to COVID, where it's like
Yeah.
this is a big gap that we're like
Yeah.
dealing with, and COVID, I feel like in a weird blessing in disguise kind of way, is revealing all of the holes of what we
Oh,
should have been paying
yeah.
attention to, and this is definitely
Exactly.
one of them.
Exactly. And that's a crazy thing too. The whole area of feminine reproductive research is really new. So the only reason, so actually going back, this was actually started, they actually only started funding feminine hygiene research back in the 1990s. So it's like maybe around 30 years. So it's relatively new. And the only reason why they actually ended up doing that is because they appointed two directors to the NIH who were both female at the time, or well, female.
Of course.
At the time, they were like, well, how come there's no research on, feminine reproductive research? And so that was actually the reason why they ended up looking into it and funding more research into this area. So
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty funny how these things happen. So yeah.
And again, it's usually a woman having to be like, okay, now I've overcome the normal challenges of just being a woman in general. Now let's talk
Yeah.
about the things that I've had to deal with this entire time on top of all the other
Exactly.
stuff.
Exactly. And they found that, it's not even just with period products, but things like the lubricants or with douches. A lot of those items might have chemicals that you wouldn't necessarily want to have exposed um, to it, inside of your body. And I would say the one thing that they did mention was if you do use organic products, there is a lesser chance or lesser likelihood of something obviously going awry, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think that the certifications are really important. You have to make sure, even if they say made with one organic ingredient, right? You have to make sure that it's that they have the certifications just to have the labeling body there, just so that whatever you end up buying is something that has been approved and audited by a regulatory body. So
Yeah.
so that's a big thing. So
Sure. No, and no, I think that's a good point, because suddenly, like, when organic became trendy, like, I guess
yeah.
that suddenly, like, hot dog brands were organic, and I was like,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
Coca-Cola was organic, like, I
Oh yeah. I know what you mean.
was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, so just make sure that whatever you end up buying, it doesn't have to be period products. I'm just saying in general, just make
Yeah.
sure that they have the labels, because that kind of really gives you more certainty that what you're buying is, better for your body. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, for sure.
And before the free version of Zoom kicks us out for the
Oh yeah.
time limit, are there any sort of final thoughts you have just on everything we talked about, and then your social media or information on Lilli Pads if you want to plug that? I'll put it in the description, but
Okay.
if you want to plug them at all
Yeah.
or anything.
No worries. So you can find us at lilli-pads.com. And then if you want to find us on Instagram, we're Lilli Pads. And of course, the same handles are for Twitter and for Facebook as well. And yeah, I mean, for us, it's really just educating the world on how to have a healthier and happier period. And we're really glad that we were able to have the opportunity to talk with you as well, Mary. It's been a
Oh,
pleasure.
you guys are so nice. I was like,
Oh,
you're
we're Canadian.
yeah. Well, and you know, I should have known, right? No, like, you guys are so nice, and I love what you guys are doing, and I'm so happy that you could come on Tampa Talk. This has been so nice. Said that a million times, but but yes, thank you from the bottom of my period loving heart to your period loving heart.
Yeah. Yeah, if anything, you know, we should definitely keep in touch for
Yes,
and talk more.
yes, every day. And yeah, any new updates or any new like we just got this new thing. Like, be like, hey, Tampa Talk, we got this thing. Can we come on? I'll be like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Mary. Really appreciate your time. And I hope that you have, well, it's time for dinner, so I hope you have a good dinner, if anything.
Oh, thank you. I hope you sleep well since you did this interview at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, that's okay. All right. It's all good. Have a good time. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one.
And there you have it. What a great person, and so refreshing during these like really crazy times. So if you like Lilli Pads and you want to see more from Elaine and her awesome company, you can check the description of this episode. Got all her links to her socials on the website, where you can order your organic period products and be a little more conscious about what you put in your body. So that's cool. I love your feedback as well. Did you like this episode? Do you like me? I need constant validation. You can email me at tampatalkwithmary@gmail.com. Let me know your thoughts. What you thinking? How you be? You can also DM me on Instagram. I am tampatalkwmary on there. We love your thoughts. We love your feedback. And we love you, more importantly. But yeah, so... you know, it's going to be okay. These times are really, really crazy, and we need each other now more than ever. So, you know, keep on bleeding. It's going to be okay. And he introed us into this episode, and he's going to send us on our way. I want to thank JP for letting me use his awesome music in the episode. So what you're hearing is Picking Flowers on Saturn by JP, and his music is in the description of this episode as well, along with his socials. So if you want to follow him and check out his awesome music among many of his other talents, if you follow his socials, you'll see. But what a great friend, and what great music. So JP, takes out.